It was one of those days where, up until that point, everything seemed normal. I'm Carol, and managing a hotel is essentially what I do for a living. Check-ins and check-outs are a never-ending hustle, and you have to be prepared for everything, including complaints. I was working at the front desk when this guy suddenly rushed over to me. From head to toe, he radiated wealth. Elegant suit, sleek hair, the whole 9 yards. He gave me a scowl as if I had broken his room as he slapped his costly phone down on the counter. "Hey, my room is in horrible condition. Who's to blame for this?" he asked, his tone sharp. I tried to smooth over the bumpy beginning by putting on my best customer service smile. "I really apologize for that. I am the manager, Carol. Allow me to immediately fix this for you." He scowled and gave me a suspicious look. Hopefully, I was going to give the owner a call. "Once more, what is your name?" "Carol," I said again, maintaining a neutral tone. "Let's resolve this. To make up for the inconvenience, how about I give you a stay in one of our best rooms on the property?" I could see his eyes getting softer as we made our way to the next room. "I apologize for exploding in that manner," he mumbled while rubbing his nape. "My name is James. I'm exhausted from traveling for weeks at a time." "James, don't worry. Everybody has those days." I remarked, "Let's just make sure the remainder of your stay is enjoyable," as I unlocked a luxurious chamber. His expression brightened as he peered inside. "This will function well. Regards." I felt a tiny bit of relief when I watched him settle. We struck up a conversation while I completed some paperwork. It transpired that he was a Bitcoin investor on the move, reaping the rewards of his astute decisions. He acknowledged, "It's not all it's cracked up to be." As I handed him the keys to his new room, I responded, "I can imagine. However, you do get to meet new people frequently, don't you?" He laughed. "Yes, like flamboyant hotel managers who know how to deal with a disgruntled customer." I chuckled. A small portion of the job's charm. He halted before going to his room. "Carol, how about we go out to supper later? I owe you one for putting up with my outburst." I was a little surprised because I hadn't anticipated that. However, he appeared sincere. "Yes, James, that would be pleasant." And so it was that I found myself having dinner with a hotel visitor, discussing everything from cryptocurrency to my favorite pizza toppings. He laughed a lot, was easy to chat to, and didn't mind if I vent to him about my crazy day. After our unplanned supper today, James and I began to spend more time together. It was more genuine and unvarnished than any of those corny love stories. After my shifts at the hotel, we would get together and sometimes go out for a late-night snack or just stroll and chat till the wee hours of the morning. We were at this little dive bar one evening, the kind where the beer is always cool and everyone knows your name. Nestled at a corner booth, our conversation was muffled by the bar's drab background noise. James was fiddling with the label on his beer bottle, a habit he developed when he was thinking about something. "You know, Carol, this road life is kind of lonely, even though I've seen a lot of places and traveled a lot." I sipped some of my drink and observed him intently. "So why do it again? What's the point of not settling down?" With a brief, dry laugh, he laughed. "As you settle down, what will you do? Invest in real estate, buy a dog, and undertake Sunday lawn maintenance? I'm not like that." I shook my head and laughed. "You know, it doesn't have to be so dull. However, I understand. Freedom is difficult to give up." We settled into a relaxed silence as we just observed the activity around us. Then, without even being aware of it, I began sharing more personal details about my life with her than I had with anyone in a long time. "You know, my little sister Anna and I were the only ones left when my parents passed away. I had to mature quickly in order to care for the two of us. Everything depended on me, including her life and education, so I put everything on wait." James looked at me with a serious expression. "That is a lot of weight." It must have been difficult for Carol to be given so much responsibility. Yes, it was terrible. But what can you do? You play the hand that is handed to you. I shrugged, trying not to let the tone get too serious. But you've done well for yourself, managing a hotel and all. I could tell he was attempting to lighten the situation. This time I actually laughed. Yeah, I guess managing the hotel, handling the bills, and making sure Anna got a more or less normal life. His gaze intense. He leaned forward. You're remarkable, you know that. I jokingly smacked his arm. Stop it. Yet his words warmed me on the inside. I felt seen by them. How about you then? Do you ever consider starting a family? Turning the tables on him, I questioned. James moved in an awkward way. Well, that's a difficult one, family. To put it mildly, my parents and I don't always agree. I have my root and they have their kingdom. An empire, huh? I gave him a playful shoulder bump. Sounds fancy. He smiled regretfully. Not as elegant as it may seem. More like golden handcuffs and a ton of expectations. That night, we barely stopped talking for hours. It seemed as though walls were broken down by being open with one another. It was only when the bartender began setting the chairs on the tables that I realized what hour it was. The relationship with James had been unexpectedly easy. We'd been dating for weeks, but he'd never really gotten close to me when it came to important things like where this was headed. That is, until one night when everything changed. James was asked to supper at my house. Other than when he picked me up for dates, it was the first time he had ever seen my place. He strolled into my apartment, observing everything. Caroline, this is extremely beautiful. Really astonished, he replied. Didn't figure you for living somewhere like this. I threw open my arms and laughed. What, you believed that I was a hobbit or something? My parents left us with a good life after they died away, sold their home, paid the down payment on the mortgage, and purchased an apartment for Anna and myself. I own this space. Impressed, James nodded. You've done well for yourself. Really well. The night continued, and we had a bottle of wine while sitting on the couch after dinner. That was when the news came out. Carol, I've been thinking a lot lately about us. I arched an eyebrow as my heart began to pound. Oh, I see. What have you been considering too? His eyes met mine as he took my hand. Carol, you have my undying affection. Although I realize I stated I wasn't looking to settle down, things are different with you. There's nowhere else I could envision myself but here with you. The words came over me like a tsunami. He was Mr. Non-Commitment only a few weeks ago, and now he's this. However, I noticed something real as I looked into his eyes. James, are you serious? You're not only a victim of the present. He squeezed my hand and shook his head. Never before have I taken things so seriously. Will you marry me, Carol? Thick and weighty, the question lingered in the air. My heart was responding even before my head had a chance to register a second thought. Yes, I'll marry you. And we were engaged in an instant. James gave me a stunning ring a few weeks later. It was straightforward, yet exquisite. It was as if I had entered a dream that I didn't want to wake up from. James talked about the wedding practically right away. Carol, you deserve a wonderful thing. One evening, as we were going over expenses and venues, he stated, Let's throw a wedding that no one will forget. When he suggested the financial strategy, I was dubious. I was considering organizing things myself since I have the contacts. You simply supply the money, let's say $50,000. After we buy a house together, I'll pay for our honeymoon in the most opulent hotel on the planet. The sum caused me to hesitate. I had most of it, so it was a lot. However, as I looked at him, my reservations vanished as I was overcome with enthusiasm. Okay, if you think that's best, I trust you, James. He took over the planning when I deposited the funds into his account. My heart grew as I saw him fully immerse himself in the arrangements. This was a man who had entered my life by chance, yet he already gave me the impression that he had always been there. Every night I smiled as I went to bed, thinking about how fortunate I was and how well everything was working out. As the wedding plans were picking up steam, I figured it was time James met my sister, Anna. She was the only family I had left, and her opinion mattered to me, even if she could be a handful sometimes. We decided to meet up at the local diner where Anna worked as a waitress. The bell jingled as we walked in, and Anna spotted us right away, her face lighting up. "Hey, sis," Anna waved us over. Then her eyes slid over to James. "And you must be the famous fiancé. I've heard loads about you." James flashed his $1,000,000 smile, stepping forward to shake her hand. "And you must be the beautiful sister I've been told so much about. You two could be twins." I rolled my eyes, feeling a mix of pride and annoyance. Okay, cut it out with the charm, mister." Anna laughed, but then leaned in with a mischievous glint in her eye. "So, James, are you as rich as they say? My sister sure knows how to push my buttons." "Anna," I hissed, embarrassed. She always knew how to push my buttons. James just chuckled, taking it in stride. "Well, I've done all right for myself, but Carol's right. It's not about the money, it's love that really counts." Anna raised an eyebrow, looking impressed. "Smooth talker, huh? I like him." Over the next few weeks, James proved to be the perfect gentleman. He was charming, attentive, and never made me feel like he was anything but utterly devoted to me. He didn't even bat an eye at Anna's flirtatious antics, which was a relief. One day, in the midst of all the wedding chaos, my best friend Liz and I went to a bridal salon to pick out my wedding dress. The place was draped in silk and satin, a bridal heaven. As I was being zipped into one of the gowns, I heard a familiar laugh from the next booth. Curious, I poked my head around the curtain, and there was Anna twirling in front of a mirror in a wedding dress. "Anna, what in the world are you doing in a wedding dress?" I asked, my voice echoing my bewilderment. She stopped twirling and gave me a crooked smile. "Oh, just trying some stuff on, for fun." Liz, who'd come around to see what the fuss was about, chuckled. "Looks like someone's caught the wedding bug." Anna's laugh was stiff, not quite reaching her eyes. "Yeah, something like that. Let's just say I might need one sooner than you think. What are you, serious? Is there something you need to tell me?" I pressed, half amused, half concerned. "Just let it be a surprise," Anna said, her tone light but evasive. We all laughed it off, thinking she was just being her usual dramatic self. I turned back to my own reflection, the image of Anna in that wedding dress lingering in my mind, but I brushed it aside, focusing on my own big day. That day was like any other until it wasn't. James had left in a hurry after breakfast, mumbling about some meeting he couldn't miss. He forgot his phone on the coffee table, and it started buzzing like crazy just minutes after he dashed out. Curiosity got the better of me. I thought it might be something urgent about the wedding or his work. Probably just his buddy checking in, I muttered to myself as I picked up the phone. There was no password. James never bothered with one. That alone should have tipped me off that he wasn't as cautious or as clever as he liked to think. The screen lit up with a storm of messages, all from the same contact. Anna. My heart sank a bit. Why is he texting Anna so much? I opened the messages, telling myself I was just being paranoid, but the words I read burned through the screen. "I can't wait to be with you forever," Anna had written. "Forget Carol. It's you I want standing with me." And James, the man I was about to marry, replied, "Soon, love. We just need to play along a little longer. She's so clueless it's almost funny." I scrolled through more messages, each one a stab in the heart. They talked about the wedding, about me, about how they'd use my money to start their life together once I was out of the picture. But the most disgusting thing was that Anna was pregnant by James. The room spun around me. I felt sick. My sister, my baby sister, who I'd practically raised on my own, was stabbing me in the back. And James, the man who'd promised to love and protect me, was the knife in her hand. An hour later, James came back looking flustered. "Hey, babe, see my phone?" he asked, kissing my cheek like nothing was amiss. I handed it over with a smile plastered on my face, the same one I'd worn 1,000 times before. "You left it here," I said sweetly. "Must be losing your touch, leaving your lifeline around." As he scrolled through his phone, presumably checking for missed messages, I watched him closely. Does he have any idea that I know? Does he even care? But James was oblivious, caught up in his own deceitful world. He laughed at something on his screen, and I felt my hands clench into fists. Laugh it up, James. Enjoy it while it lasts. Later that night, as we lay in bed, he was all smiles and plans for the future. Our future. "It's going to be perfect, Carol. This wedding, our life together. You'll see." I turned to face him, my heart a battleground of love and longing. "I'm sure it will be," I murmured, letting him pull me close. "Absolutely perfect." As he drifted off, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The gears in my mind were turning, plotting, planning. I wasn't going to be the victim in this twisted play. They wanted a show. I'd give them one they'd never forget. But first, I had to act the part of the doting fiancé just a little longer. The day of the wedding had arrived, and with it, a performance worthy of an award. The grand hall was filled with flowers, and our guests whispered excitedly, none the wiser of the drama about to unfold. Just as we were about to exchange vows, the doors at the back of the hall burst open. Anna, in a wedding dress, marched up the aisle like she owned the place. The crowd gasped, turning to watch her approach. She didn't stop until she reached us, pushing me aside with a dramatic flair. "I'm the one who deserves to be here, Carol, not you. I'm having his baby," she declared loudly, turning to James. "Tell her, tell everyone, James." James let go of my hand and laughed, a harsh, ugly sound that echoed off the walls. "Thank you, Carol, for this lavish wedding setup. It's perfect for me and your sister." The guests murmured, shock written on every face. James continued, "Why don't you take a seat, Carol? Enjoy the show as a guest." His words were meant to wound, but I simply smiled, stepping back gracefully. "Of course I wouldn't miss it for the world," I said, my voice calm and even. Their smug smiles faltered, confusion flickering as I walked away without a scene. I took a seat, crossing my legs and fixing my gaze on the farce unfolding before me as they turned to face the priest and made their own vows. Another dramatic entrance halted everything once more. A woman, clearly older and carrying an air of fury like a storm, marched down the aisle. "James!" she bellowed, making him pale. "You lying, cheating scumbag!" The whole room froze. James's fake smile slipped, revealing a hint of the panic he felt as the woman stood before us all. "I am his wife and mother to his child, which he has conveniently forgotten, along with the vows he made to me." Anna's legs almost gave out beneath her, her face colorless. Her gaze moved from James to the woman and finally to me, a wordless cry for assistance. I got up and said, "I also have a little gift for everyone." I spoke with clarity and frigid precision, enunciating every word. James is more than a bigamy. He's bankrupt. He is deeply in debt, as proven by a private investigator. Not only did his investments backfire, but he has also been embezzling money from his own relatives. Whispers sprang out throughout the audience, the rich sound of scandal and rumors blending together. James's spouse betrayed Anna. With tears flowing down her cheeks, my sister staggered back as she charged at her, saying, "And you, how dare you?" As I watched, a sense of both bittersweet delight filled my chest. This was the result of weeks of preparation and suffering. It was gratifying to watch them fall apart, to witness their worlds fall apart, but it also left a hollow aching deep below. The actual wife went on accusing, her voice harsh and merciless. "You think he would build something with you when he left us with nothing? Girl, get up." Anna sobbed as her ideal wedding descended into a horror. James tried to talk so he could maintain some semblance of dignity, but his wife gave him a hard smack across the cheek, and the sound of the cracking sharply echoed into the hallway. James's parents, an additional pair of unexpected guests, barged through the doors just as the guests were starting to digest the startling disclosures. The old couple, their features furrowed with surprise and wrath as they took in the sight before them, looked every inch the part of a frustrated nobility. The first to speak, his voice booming over the murmuring of the audience, was the father, a stern-looking man wearing a fine suit. "James, you have me completely embarrassed. To think you could resort to such deception," he yelled, staring at his son with a glare that seemed to be trying to evoke regret only by his words. His mother gripped a handkerchief firmly. She was a frail-looking woman with tears streaming down her cheeks. She sobbed, "My son, how could you? We did not raise you in this manner. It's unacceptable to deceive these women." James stood there, the disdain of the public and his family casting a shadow over his usually elegant manner. When he opened his mouth to explain, his father interrupted. "The legacy of this family no longer includes you. Think of yourself as inheritorless," his father said in a stern and decisive tone. Once again, the room descended into mayhem as guests pulled out their phones, probably filming the end of my ideal wedding. I brought James to court in the ensuing weeks. In my case, I sought reimbursement for the $50,000 I had naively given up for our intended wedding. James was ordered to reimburse every amount by the judge after my case was decided in my favor due to the overwhelming evidence. His legal wife followed suit not too long after. She asked for alimony for their daughter and filed a lawsuit against him for deceit and mental distress. I showed up to every court hearing. Every time I saw James suffer the repercussions of his deeds, I was filled with a bittersweet sense of vindication. Surprisingly, Anna was behind him, having sided with the guy who had almost destroyed me. Anna came up to me one day outside the courtroom. "Carol, he loves me and I love him. Regardless of what you or anyone else believes, we are going to overcome this." I looked at her, my once loved sibling who was now essentially a stranger. "Affection? Do you refer to this as love?" "Anna, he took advantage of both of us. Let your eyes open. He lies." "However, he has evolved. He'll adapt to suit me." "You simply couldn't see the positive aspects of him," Anna shot back, her voice faltering but resolute. I let out a chilly laugh and shook my head. "Well, Anna, there is no goodness in him. He is a scammer, and you are just another victim of his deceit. The falsehoods, the betrayals, the legal battles, everything that had transpired weighed heavily on me as I was leaving. Everything has taken a toll. There was, nevertheless, an odd feeling of resolution. I had shown his true colors to the world, and the man who had sworn he would love me had exhibited them. With a ghostly hush and a trail of unfulfilled promises and obligations in his wake, James quietly left town, closing the final chapter of their narrative. Before disappearing, he had managed to pay his debts to both me and his legal wife, maybe believing it would clear his record. But my sister Anna, who was left pregnant and alone, was the real mess he left behind. Anna visited my flat a few weeks after James vanished. We had not seen each other since the scene at the courts. She stood with her eyes downcast, a shadow of the fiery person she once was. "Carol, I need help," she murmured, her voice faltering. "I'm going to have his baby." And he left. I am devoid of everything. I could have given in, could have thrown open the door and welcomed her back into my life without a second thought if I had been the one who had raised her. However, too much had occurred. "You'll have the baby, and you already have the apartment. That's the beginning. You are not homeless. You are not defenseless. However, Carol, I am broke. The baby, the bills. I require assistance." I shook my head, my heart hurting to see her like this, but the resolve was solid. "Anna, you made your decision. You are now able to make another. Sort it out the way I had to after Mom and Dad passed away, like I did following your backstab." She cried, her hands covering her face as her body trembled. "I didn't aim to cause you harm. I believed I had found love. I did, truly. You don't betray your family out of love. Love doesn't turn you into a bystander to my shame. You didn't love me enough to tell me the truth before everything went wrong and to avoid him." With a look of desperation on her face, Anna looked up. "That's it then? Are you simply going to ignore me?" "Yes, that is all there is to it. Just as I took care of you, you're going to leave here and care for your child on your own." I turned around and headed back to my flat, slamming the door on her cries with a final resounding bang that shut my heart. Though essential, it was the toughest thing I had ever done. After that day, everything returned to a peaceful normalcy that I hadn't realized I'd missed. I returned wholeheartedly to my work, picked up long-neglected interests, and gradually re-established the independence that had always been my identity. Regarding Anna, I've been informed by family friends that she gave birth to a young girl. They said she was barely making ends meet. Sincerely, I hope that she found her path and discovered the strength in her mothering role, something she had not discovered as a sister.